Our next speaker is the senior colorist and director of creative services at Central, a boutique post-production facility here in Vancouver. After graduating from Emily Carr in 2002, she honed her skills in on-set photography and picture editing before joining Central in 2004. When the company opened the city's first color grading studio in 2007, she seized the opportunity to sit in the colorist chair. Within 6 months, she had earned the main colorist credit on her first feature film. Since then, she has cast her keen eye over a rapidly growing library of television series and films, including award-winning documentaries like Facing Ali and Saving Luna, and most recently completing final color for Neill Blomkamp's Elysium. Outside the color suite, she finds inspiration all around her, from the chestnut tone of her morning espresso to the rich emerald forests and cool gray waters of the Pacific Northwest. Please welcome Andrea Chlebak.
I thought I talked fast, but it's going to be a bit of a race today, apparently. So I've come to the conclusion lately that Vancouver is a city that has a climate particularly good for creativity. And it's beautiful. I mean, we have ocean and mountain right at our fingertips, and it's like a permanent vacation half of the year, right? Where people are out there, posting Instagram in like 3-minute increments. But the other half of the year, it's not really that inspiring. But I think this is good though, because what that does is makes us go inside and forces us to find something to do, like read or study or watch movies all day, which is what I do. It actually is what I do. And it's funny because I want to share this first with my nephew. Posted this on Facebook a few weeks ago. I forgot to tell all you peoples my auntie colored the movie Elysium, the entire movie, and got to meet the director of Elysium, who is also the director of District 9, and she got to see how an IMAX projector works. I thought that was awesome. My nephew is Zoolander, apparently. So then young Jacob says, well, what's coloring a movie, right? Like putting different shades and making it look realistic and fine-lining it and stuff like that. Well, that's what it is. Right? It's pretty much what it is, right? I mean, So he's right. I color graded Elysium, the whole movie, it's true. And I got a chance to work with Neill Blomkamp, which was amazing. And my team at Central, which is also amazing. There's 8 of us. Pulled it all together, all the visual effects and the images and the sound and the titles, and made the final film that is now in theaters everywhere all over the world, right here. And it mastered on IMAX, which is pretty cool. So here we are at IMAX, and I have to say that IMAX was a pretty pivotal moment, actually, in my career this year, where we got a chance to see the movie, and then they took us into the vault, and they showed us all of these movies, and the titles were like just incredible. And that was the moment, actually, I realized that I just worked on something that is now a part of this like echelon of giant movies. And it kind of reminded me, like, why do this, all of this in the first place, which is, to me, movies are like magic. And they teach us something and they take us places. And when we travel, the world starts to look new. And when I worked on Elysium, actually, a lot of really great experiences, but one of them that sticks out is I had a chance to learn a little bit more about Sid Mead. He's a visual futurist. You might recognize his work in Blade Runner or Alien. He's actually 80, and he actually did the concept art for Elysium. But he's really interesting. He says to be truly creative, you have to be 3 people. You have to be, one, the artist, to be able to conceive ideas and solve problems. You have to be a technician, so you have to have a skill or a science that you can actually apply and solve that problem. And then you need to be a third person, that observer, to take a step back and see what those 2 are doing and apply them in the world. And you can kind of see, like, where I work, it can be kind of like conceived as kind of technical. To the point where my husband actually tells people at parties, like, she's basically the Wesley Crusher of the film industry, which is not really funny if you don't know Star Trek: The Next Generation. But I mean, he's right. Like, it's quite technical. I mean, I learned this tool, and sometimes my job is we used to call it color correction. So you're taking disparate images, shot at different times of day, and then kind of applying a look so that they match. and that they look like they were, happening at the same time when they're cut together. And that's sort of technical, even that's a little bit creative. But I think the artistry that comes out in what I do is more about when you look at a film and you try to create a story with color. And Stanley Kubrick once said that film should be more like music, like a progression of moods and feelings, and like all the meaning and the theme that just comes after. It's my kind of director. So for example, you could have a scene where there's a girl at a corner store, and if it's a comedy, it's bright and it's colorful. But if there's like a weird hillbilly lurking around the corner, it might make a bit more tension if it's darker, more contrasty, less saturated, like creating a mystery, sort of with color. And I think that's really hard, like trying to, you can be technical and you can say, oh, this tool is really cool. It does all these cool things. And yes, I'm an artist and I'm amazing and I have these great ideas. But taking a step aside and knowing when to stop and being able to truly kind of look at the world and how what you're doing is sort of fits into that world. I think that's the hard part. And Camille Corot is a painter of the mid-19th century. He has a really funny story to me, at least. He moved to Italy from France partway through his career and started painting, and he thought he was going to create these incredible paintings of Rome. And it started out, they just weren't what he thought. And he wrote home saying, oh, the light in Italy is just bleak and it's depressing. But something changed, and he decided to go back to the scene every day, sometimes 3-4 times a day, and he would look at the scene, and then he would paint it. And that deliberate practice of actually looking at the world and then choosing to paint was something that actually taught him a new technique in his painting. And that idea actually kind of came up a lot when I was working on Elysium with Neill, because he was trying to frame this vision of the future that was actually quite realistic, not super fantastical. And so we would always do, cool things. And he would always step back and go, that's cool, but is it believable? And that's kind of interesting, like what's real, really. And I think that collaborating actually allows you to kind of see the world through somebody else's eyes, and you might kind of oh yeah, he's doing his own thing, he's really awesome. But at some point, you realize that you're actually along that journey with them, and you're on the path, kind of looking at what they're looking at. And I've sort of come to think that, being detached from your work, from your life for a little while, can actually bring insight to your whole world and kind of surprise you, things you might not be able to predict. Like, for example, realizing the city you work in actually helps you develop the style of what you do or why you do it. And I think, personally, if you can be the audience of your own work, you can not only create an experience that's so much more engaging for everybody, but you also get a chance to go on that journey yourself, and maybe you can teach yourself something, and maybe you can figure out why you're doing it all in the first place. Are you with me, everybody? What do you think?